the essential question: under what circumstances do extreme ideologies emerge? To answer the essential question, we must understand what extreme ideology is, and what makes them extreme compared to other ideologies. Fascism and communism are both extreme ideologies. Though some people may term communism and fascism as the two sides of the same coin, however, they are different in their fundamental belief and other aspects. Communism is an economy and social system in which all property and resources are collectively owned by a classless society and not by individual citizens. To achieve communism, the working class must rise up against the capitalist owners, and institute a new society with no private property, no economic classes and no profits. Communism is categorized as a left-wing policy because it favors distributing political power to the people. Left-wing generally refers to more liberal or progressive views, as in wanting to change things in ways that have not been tried before, based on the belief that people are basically good and the government has a responsibility to care for all of its citizens to some degree. Taken to its logical conclusion, left-wing politics becomes some form of socialism or communism. Oppositely, right-wing usually refers to more conservative or regressive views, as in wanting things to stay the same or return to how they used to be. It is characterized by a belief in the natural selfish nature of humans and the view that achievement is equivalent to worth. The government should stay out of people's affairs and not force the more productive citizens to subsidize the less productive citizens. Fascism is known as right-wing policy because it favors of centralizing political power in the hands of the leaders of government. Fascism is a political ideology that imposes strict social and economic measures as a method of empowering the government and stripping citizens of right. This authoritarian system of government is usually headed by an absolute dictator who keeps citizens suppressed via active violence and strict laws that govern the people. Although communism and fascism are two opposite ideologies, what makes them extreme is because they both used violence to achieve their goals, and the goals themselves were also extreme. Mussolini was the leader of the National Fascist Party, ruling Italy as Prime Minister from 1922 until 1943. He ruled constitutionally until 1925, when he dropped all pretense of democracy and set up a legal dictatorship. What conditions favor Mussolini and how did he come to power? After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles failed to support Italy's territorial claim, which Italy had not gained much benefit. The Wall Street crash in 1929 damaged Europe economically and politically, which caused Italy to suffer greatly. Italy was not seen as a strong country economically and military in 19th and 20th century. Mussolini wanted to make Italy into a strong country by forming alliances with other strong nations. Mussolini was originally a member of the Italian Socialist Party, but he was expelled from the side due to his opposition to the party's stance on neutrality in World War I. In 1919, Mussolini founded the National Fascist Party. At the time, Nationalist has massive support from the public. Mussolini recognized it and incorporated with the Nationalists. Mussolini also wanted to unite people on their Italian root, the Italian culture, but not the class. By proclaiming the greatness of Italy, more people supported him. Meanwhile, the rise of the fascist movement led by Mussolini, fascists and communists fought on the streets during this period as the two factions competed to gain power in Italy. However, the Italian government feared a communist revolution more than a fascist uprising. In 1917, communists overthrew the Russian government, leading to civil war and mass murder. The Italy government did not want the revolution to repeat in Italy, so it ignored most of the fascist violence. Violence grew in 1921 with Italian army officers beginning to assist the fascists with their violence against communists and socialists. With the fascist movement growing, anti-fascists grouped themselves together to form People's Militia. With the threat of People's Militia, Mussolini's demand for the Prime Minister factored resignation in the national celebration of World War I. Mussolini and his followers marched for Rome. Before Facta being resigned, Mussolini and about 30,000 fascists surrounded the capital, and the king was forced to resign the prime minister to Mussolini in 1922. How about Germany? How did Hitler come to power? Germans were indeed angry about the World War I and the Treaty of Versailles that Germany was blamed to start the war, and was forced to pay huge debt to Britain and France. Also, the new constitutional government, Weimar Republic, was proven to be ineffective, and many Germans actually wanted a return to dictatorship, especially after the Wall Street crash, when the government failed to take Germany out of the economic crisis. After the Wall Street crash in 1929, U.S. called in its loans from Germany, and Germany's economy collapsed. The number of unemployment increased, inflation devalued the German currency, and people were starving on the street. In the crisis, Germans were desperate, and wanted someone to blame, and look for a solution. Hitler offered them both. He promised that he will create more jobs, and bring Germany back to glory, and he blamed Jewish people, the immigrants that had took all the jobs away. According to the 25 Points 1920, an early Nazi program, written by Adolf Hitler in 1920. The eighth point of the document: any further immigration of non-citizens is to be prevented. We demand that all non-Germans, who have immigrated to Germany since the August 2, 1914, be forced immediately to leave the Reich. Adolf Hitler was an Austrian-born German politician and the leader of the Nazi Party. He was Chancellor of Germany from 1933 to 1945 and dictator of Nazi Germany from 1934 to 1945. Hitler is a fascist, and a strong nationalist. He believes that Germans are the best and the others are cultural and biological inferior. Hitler was a powerful and spellbinding speaker, and strongly believed that he had been called by God to become the dictator of Germany and ruled the world. He used lots of propagandas and newspapers to publicize his belief. Let's talk about Russia before 1917. How did Lenin able to rise to power? Russia was an autocracy under the rule of czars before 1917. Russia was an agricultural-based country, which Russian heavily depended on the production of crops. The farmers were called serfs, and their life pretty much sucks because Russia was not advanced in technology, which means their production rate was very low due to the extreme weather. In 1891, the winter's temperatures fell to -31 degrees Celsius, but very little snow fell, therefore the seedlings were totally unprotected from the frost, caused a large degree of famine. The crop production in 1892 was only half the amount of 1890. In 1905, a group of protesters gathered outside the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. However, Nicholas II, the Tsar, ordered the army to kill the protesters, which led to the start of 1905 revolution. More than 2 million of workers protested on the streets. Nicholas II agreed to give more freedom and democracy to people through October Manifesto by creating a dual monarchy, where there is a representative body called Duma. However, Nicholas II did not keep his promise, which actually based the anger of Russian, and the later success of Lenin. In 1914, Russia went to war against Germany as the World War I outbreak in Europe. Russians was completely defeated by the Germans. Russian soldiers and the public were discouraged and lost the will to fight, especially after Nicholas II took over the army, when he had almost no experience in leading army. Russia had huge casualties in World War I with number around 1.7 million to 2.2 million. Many people desired for a change. In 1917, estimated 90,000 women marched through the street. They worked long hours in miserable conditions to feed their family because their husbands and fathers were at the front, fighting the war. The following day, more than 150,000 men and women took to the streets to protest. Soon more people joined them. Even the army of Tsar switched sides to join the revolution. After the revolution, the former Duma members formed a provisional government that was supported by the middle and upper class. However, the provisional government believed Russia should honor its commitments to its allies in World War I and continue fighting. which Lenin did not agree. When Lenin returned to Russia, he gave the speech that shocked everyone. He called for another revolution. He reminded the people that the country was still at war and that the provisional government had done nothing to give the people bread and land. After nearly a bloodless coup, the Bolsheviks controlled Russia, and Lenin became the prime minister. In conclusion, under what circumstances do extreme ideologies emerge? People living under poor economic conditions, unstable political environment, unemployment, and experiencing starvation will lead to their anger and encourage them to overthrow the government. Also, the charismatic of the leader is also an important factor. For example, Hitler was a well speaker, which he combined clear diction with simple argumentation to appeal people to follow him.
Created using Powtoon.